Good evening, everyone. On behalf of TaskMed, I would like to welcome you all to Medcast, Insights into Healthcare, a learning initiative by TaskMed. Today, it's a great pleasure to have with us Dr. Supriya Hegde, who is a professor and head of Department of Psychiatry at Father Muller's Medical College, Mangalore. We welcome you, Doctor. Doctor, we look forward to hear from you on today's topic of discussion, melatonin, exploring its therapeutic potential. Over to you, Dr. Supriya.
Good evening, everyone. At the onset, I would like to thank TASMET for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. Wasting much time, when we think about melatonin, uh, we read about melatonin from the time that we are in pharmacology. So when melatonin is secreted by a gland which is supposed to be vestigial, just use in the body. Similarly, the pineal gland from which the melatonin is synthesized is supposed to be a vestigial gland. But when you read more about melatonin, you come to know that it is actually a very vital hormone, which helps to regulate sleep and wake cycle. So in this particular discussion, I would touch upon what is melatonin, what are its properties, what is its structure, how it is synthesized, how does it act on the body, how it is metabolized, where it is used, and in the next presentation, it will be more of for the clinical indications. So as we all know, melatonin is a hormone, and it's a chemically a complex structure. We know it is produced by the pineal gland, and it's an extremely, though a pineal gland as such is supposed to be vestigial, but it has a significant role not only for the CNS but also for immune system, gastrointestinal system, bone marrow, leukocytes, etc. So this next slide shows the chemical structure of melatonin. This is a more three-dimensional structure of melatonin. Now, where is it synthesized, and from what? So amino acid tryptophan helps in the synthesis of melatonin. So this is the reaction where it shows that how a decarboxylase enzyme converts the L-tryptophan into a 5-hydroxy-tryptophan or serotonin, and how serotonin is converted to acetyl serotonin, and how that is converted into melatonin. So these are the steps of synthesis of melatonin. Now we know that the melatonin is released based on the circadian rhythm. So the sunlight is probably the biggest stimulus through the eyes, where the photoreceptor cells pick up, and in the suprachiasmatic nucleus of this thing, there is a circadian clock or a biological clock which regulates the sleep-wake cycle. So this particular slide depicts that as to how the melatonin is regulated. So there is a definite neurochemical reaction which occurs at the level of the retinal ganglion cells, which regulates the synthesis of melatonin from the pineal gland. So melatonin helps not only to drive the circadian rhythm during the night, but it also helps to cause calmness in the cerebral cortex when one sleeps. So if this mechanism is dysregulated, then there will be improper sleep, either because the circadian rhythm is not stimulated or the cerebral cortex continues to be overstimulated. So absence of light helps in the synthesis of melatonin. This is a simplistic way of putting it. This particular suprachiasmatic nucleus is depicted, and how the inhibitory effect of the absence of the light helps in the synthesis of melatonin from the pineal gland is depicted. This is a more complex diagram. So the melatonin secretion starts in infancy itself, and it peaks in when a child is in his toddler age group, And slightly in adolescence it is more, and then in early adulthood it becomes less, and as a person ages it becomes really less. And that's why naturally also, if you talk to people who are becoming old, they find it very difficult to sleep or maintain sleep. So liver is the first side of metabolism of melatonin, so that is where it is cleared and it's excreted in the urine. A part of it, like a 1% only, is excreted unchanged in the urine. So melatonin is not only helpful in regulation of sleep, but it is an antioxidant. It helps in the immune system. It helps in as an anti-cancer. It has a role in dreaming, and it has other effects also. So melatonin as an antioxidant is a free radical scavenger, and it stimulates the antioxidative enzymes, and it increases the efficiency of the mitochondria, and it increases the efficiency of other antioxidants. So we don't just look at melatonin as a sleep inducer, but also as an antioxidant. It helps the immune system because it has high effect. The immunological effect is pronounced, and it has an effect on enhanced cytokine production, and it also helps to fight infections, and it also it is related to interleukin 2 production. In this context, I would like to say that if in the recent COVID pandemic also, we have given melatonin to patients who've developed COVID, and not only did that help them in from getting a good night's sleep, but overall, generally they have done well when on melatonin. So melatonin is also supposed to be anti-cancer, and it has an inhibitory effect on tumor growth. And probably by the method of suppression of prolactin, it helps to curtail tumor effects. And especially if it is given in the earliest cells of the tumor, it is supposed to be effective. But these are all preliminary reports. These are not based on randomized control trials. So what the hypothesis here is that apoptosis is a method in which the older cells or the aging cells are removed by the body, and higher level of melatonin suppresses the tumor promoting gene, and it helps in because of its anti-estrogenic effect also. Um, Melatonin is also helpful, especially higher doses. It can induce sleep at very high doses, and certain euphoric drugs also indirectly release melatonin. Melatonin is supposed to be the opening gate for sleep, and it is the regulator of internal biological clock. And melatonin helps to maintain a good sleep. So melatonin also has anti-gastritis properties and helps to reduce the severity of gastric ulcers and colitis. So here it is seen that when estradiol is administered to postmenopausal women, it increases melatonin level also, and this improves the overall health. So we are not only looking at melatonin as a sleep inducer or as anti-cancer or as antioxidant or as immune modulator, but it also has effects on menstrual function in a positive way, and it helps to uh, improve sleep quality, anti-aging. It helps in deep sleep. It also helps in development of sex organs before puberty. Um, helps in the inhibits the growth and development of sex organs before puberty, and many biological effects of melatonin are produced through activation of the melatonin receptors. So if you look at the therapeutic uses of melatonin, they are vast and varied. So melatonin is used as an adjuvant in treatment of cancer, in immune disorders, in cardiovascular diseases, as an adjuvant in depression, in seasonal affective disorder, sexual dysfunction, fertility issues, headache, dietary supplement, insomnia, and to prevent ischemic damage. So many of these conditions can cause low melatonin naturally. One is alcohol intake and abuse, vitamin B12 deficiency, caffeine, NSAIDs, beta blocker medication, glucocorticoids, cigarettes, antidepressants, and stress. So if there is a deficiency, they can cause unwanted problems such as nausea, vivid dreams, hypothermia, hormone fluctuations, dizziness, confusion, fatigue, and menstrual irregularities. Drug-to-drug interaction, if there are drugs which are metabolized by the same hormones system, such as fluoxetine, the levels of melatonin can be increased, especially if they're enzyme inhibitors. And it may increase blood pressure when it interacts with certain drugs like nifedipine. So this is as far as the first slide goes, the first set of slides. So if to put it briefly, so melatonin is a very versatile hormone. It is produced by the pineal gland. It is secreted from the amino acid tryptophan through the serotonin mechanism. It has a multitude of effects not only on the sleep cycle, but also a multitude of other factors like anti-aging, anti-cancer, gastrointestinal, menstrual. So it is like, and in many cases, it works well as an adjuvant. In the recent COVID pandemic, personally, I had the experience of giving melatonin to patients, mainly for sleep, but I have given them at around 10 milligrams. Some of them I have given 10 milligrams BD also because they were very agitated in the daytime. They couldn't tolerate other medicines. So it has worked well. So this is as far as the first presentation goes. So I request the host to kindly intervene here and help me with the second presentation.
Right, sure, ma'am.
So the second presentation, uh, we don't need to go through the entirety of it because a lot of it we have already covered.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm trying to enlarge it. You're able to see only a part of it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now is it okay?
Yeah, yeah. Perfect, ma'am.
Hmm?
Yes.
So this is actually again a repetition of what we did in the previous slides. So I will not go through some of these slides which are a repetition. But these are the extra points here where how melatonin secretion can be suppressed by this blue light which comes out of monitors which these kids and even the elders use on their gadgets. So when the melatonin secretion gets suppressed, then obviously the sleep inducing property goes. So these are some of the lifestyle issues that we deal with these days, where people are stuck on their phones, they are on WhatsApp and they are on, Instagram, or they are playing some games. And this particular blue light which emanates suppresses melatonin, suppresses sleep inducing issues. That's why we tell our patients 45 minutes before sleep, do a digital detox. This again, we have already seen this in the previous presentation. So this also has, we have gone through in the previous presentation, so I will not be repeating it. This again, how the eye and the retina help to give a feedback information to the pineal gland for melatonin secretion, and how this biological clock is significantly regulated by melatonin. This particular slide shows that not only for sleep, but it has a lot of scavenger action and hence the anti-cancer action. So basically it does multitude of functions. So, so because of that, it helps in tumor regulation, reduces skin damage by UV radiation, helps in menstrual irregularities in perimenopausal age. So when we are promoting melatonin at say 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams, we needn't just focus on the sleep part of it, but we can also promote it as a lifestyle drug. So in elderly patients who are anyway having difficulty in sleep, and if they don't have significant syndromal depression or anxiety, we could say melatonin will help them have a good quality of life and maybe have some anti-aging, anti-tumor effect as well. It should work in the elderly well. If even there's somebody who's like high strung on anxiety also, melatonin may help to reduce gastric ulcers to some extent along with other drugs. In most cases, it seems to be adjuvant rather than the only drug that we give. This is a new slide in which disorders of melatonin, hyper and hypomelatonism have been depicted. So most of the psychiatric disorders, there is hypomelatonism. And because of hypomelatonism, there can be many lifestyle illnesses, and it is associated with cancer. Can't say it causes cancer. So most of melatonin dysfunction causes insomnia and sleep disorders, and that itself can lead to other psychiatric illnesses. Here I would like to speak about jet lag and night shift working thing, which is I think very something which I commonly treat the night shift workers. So now what has happened is many people are working from home in the IT industry. So they are like constantly, they have so many things to do, and they are working 11 hours. Some of them are working in UK time, some are working in Australia time, some are working in US time, and many a times as their projects change, their shift also shifts, and they have problem falling asleep. So melatonin has helped at around 5 milligrams, low dose itself, to get them back into sleep. Some people have associated tension headache, for which I have given amitriptyline along with melatonin. The good part about melatonin is that because it is naturally produced, the word addiction or dependency is less, because when we try to talk to the patients, we can say it's anyway being produced in your body. We are just supplementing it from outside, and you won't be wrong in saying that. So melatonin is naturally like wherever we looked at tryptophan. So these are the probably the foods which are rich in tryptophan. Even warm milk, banana. These are common things which patients ask that will it help to improve the antidepressant hormone or the sleep hormone. So these things do help. So what I would say is melatonin is a very versatile hormone. It is produced by the pineal gland. It has antioxidant, anti-tumor, and sleep-inducing properties. And melatonin is indirectly responsible for a lot of issues in psychiatry. And sleep hygiene is some of the things that we teach our patients when we also give them medicines, because they need to have a good sleep. They need to have good sleep habits so that they are able to again go back to their normal sleep cycle. So I think this is all about the presentation. And if there are any questions, I would be very glad to answer them. Thank you.
So I just want to request all the participants, if there is any question, kindly write down into the chat box.
There is one question which says that what is the maximum dose of melatonin we can prescribe? Uh, See, the toxic dose is extremely high, but that we are not prescribing that. Most patients do well with 10 milligrams. So, on an average, I would say 10 milligrams at night would do well. But in like in COVID patients, 10 milligrams TID also I have given without any problems, 3 times a day. One elderly patient I gave twice a day, that also worked well. what is the best time to give melatonin? I think you should coincide it with the natural melatonin cycle. Give it in the early evening. That would probably be a good time. If somebody has some other opinion on that, please share it with me. It will be of use to me as well. So it's for all medications. The question is whether absorption related to food. I think some amount of, we have to be careful. We can't give it after a heavy meal. It will make the absorption erratic, but it can be given freely. It is safety in pregnant patients, not a known teratogen. We can combine with the antidepressants. I have given it with amitriptyline myself. With SSRIs also it can be given. I've given it with mirtazapine also. I have given it, I think, with desvenlafaxine also and fluoxamine also. Only thing is, like, when the condition is severe, no, like suppose somebody is severely depressed and having severe insomnia, then this might not be very effective. They will not report significant improvement immediately. So we need to have some patience when they come back and say, I've still not been able to sleep well. So that is one thing, that quick fix attitude, if we slightly shed, we should be able to give more melatonin. Uh, can we administer melatonin to patients who are taking immunosuppressants? I actually don't know that. For jet lag, what we can do is, jet lag is more when we travel eastwards. So they may require melatonin for at least a fortnight. But the ones who travel westwards, they require it for less than a week. That is in practice. But up to 1 month, there shouldn't be any problem. Another question is whether people who are already on benzodiazepine class of drugs, is it possible to add melatonin? Uh, Actually, benzodiazepines are more potent, I feel, with respect to their sleep producing ability. And they also have a dual action of taking care of anxiety significantly. So adding melatonin to them, I don't know. I have not done that, because if I've given a benzodiazepine, I've not given a melatonin. But if anybody wants to give me any clarification on that, I would like to discuss. Does anybody want to say anything? Uh, I think we have answered all the questions in the chat box, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So I hope all the queries of my attendees have been handled by ma'am. If in case anyone wants to ask more question, ma'am, there is one question.
So does melatonin improve daytime sleep for shift workers? So that's a very difficult question, because see, if they're going to sleep during the daytime after finishing a night shift, then it is important that other factors are also taken into account, that that the light is regulated and they are not overstimulated at that point of time, and they have had an adequate digital detox, and if all of that is taken care of, it does help. This severe mental illness like schizophrenia or severe depressive episode, the patient is so distressed that we are compelled to treat them with lot of caution, and uh, a lot of we have to be fast in getting them all right. So we, I think, tend to use more of benzodiazepines for sleep rather than melatonin because the results have to come fast. So in that thing that if they are severely depressed and they are not sleeping, whether that agitation will cause them to hurt themselves is the fear which makes us give something stronger rather than starting with melatonin. But in mild cases in elderly people, I think we should give melatonin a chance. It would be good. It would be safer. I think we have answered many questions, ma'am. I don't
Yes,
think that we
ma'am.
have missed.
Yeah, I feel we have answered all the queries. So thank you so much, Dr. Supriya, for joining with us today. It was really an insightful
Thank
discussion
you for
for.
the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. It was really an insightful discussion for us as well as for our listeners. I would also like to thank all the doctors for being with us and for their active participation during the session. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Thank you, doctor, for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye, ma'am. Good night, ma'am.
Bye. Good night.